This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Show. I am the fill-in host today for Mac, Jamie Pags, otherwise known as the Philly Sports Guy. And we are broadcasting live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and our Roku channel at the Northeast Streaming Sports Network. What's going on, guys? I would normally start off and I would say, listen, we're going to go around the world here of sports, but really the world starts right here in Philadelphia as we are one of the hottest teams in Major League Baseball. After losing 5 straight, we have let go of our manager, and next thing you know, that we are on a 7-game winning streak. Of course, only to be outdone by the Atlanta Braves, who are also on an 8-game winning streak, but have played literally nobody to win those 8 games. They've been playing Sister Mary of the Blind and also Sister Mary of the Poor to be able to get those 8 wins, where we've actually done it against teams that had above 500 records. So it's been an interesting, week, we'll say, since the last time you guys have spoken to me, at least on the Mac and Jack Show. And I'm expecting my co-host John to show up here. And he said, as I'm speaking it is manifested. Here he is.
Good morning.
My co-host John El Parcero Philly, where you may have seen us before together. It's been a while since we've done a show, but we're back in the saddle again. Good morning, John.
I'm doing great, man. How we doing over there?
I'm having a blast. It's an exciting time a little bit in Philadelphia sports. I mean, of course we got rid of a manager who, I think the city as a whole thought it was time for him to go. And the next thing you know is everybody breathed a sigh of relief, including Joe Girardi. He's just like, yeah, I feel like that this is better for everybody, and kind of said so exactly to MLB baseball, and then to turn around and us to win 7 straight. And it's not easy to win a baseball game in general. I mean, everybody's going to win their share of games and such. So but to win 7 straight, especially against teams that are above 500, it's not easy. And here it is. We're coming on strong.
It's crazy what Mr. Thompson has done to this, not only to this baseball team, but the city. Like, everyone is now, they have like this belief again that the Phillies can actually do something. But like what you said, like, I just feel like Joe Girardi was just, this job just got way over his head. He clearly did not get a connection with that dugout as well. I mean, you see these guys now, they're over there having fun in the dugout. You hear them after the games in the press conference for Rob Thompson. You hear the locker room going loud with the music, going crazy, and it's just the philosophy that Rob has, and I think that it responds more to this baseball team. Rob, when I see him, and obviously we haven't had a full glimpse of what he actually is, but just from the little bit that we've seen, I just feel like Rob is like a no nonsense guy. Like, he will tell you how it is. He keeps it simple for you, but then at the end of the day, when you do your job, when you get the work done, he'll have a beer with you. He'll hang out with you. He'll let you let loose a little bit. I think that's kind of what this team needed. And I think that this team believes a little bit more in Rob Thompson. I feel like they just did not believe anything Joe said. I don't even think Joe believed what he was saying either, but it's been a lot of fun. I mean, from actually trusting the youth, we've seen a lot of good plays from our young players, and that's just Rob actually putting them out there. Starting pitching has been pretty solid, and I love the fact that Rob is allowing these guys to go over that borderline of those 100 pitches, and you see how that helps out in turn with the bullpen. And it's just feeling really good right now. And I think that the Phillies did catch the Angels and the Brewers at the wrong times, because obviously the Angels were on an 11-game losing streak, and the Brewers right now in their last 9 are 1-7 or 1-8. So you called them at the wrong time. But what do good baseball teams do? They take advantage of that and they do their job. And that is exactly what the Phillies did. But I mean, the runs, holy crap. They're averaging 7 runs a game right now through the stretch that they've been on. And it's a lot of fun. That's what we asked for, right?
That's
bring
exactly
in the
correct.
runs.
That's exactly correct. They started off before this had come about. They were at a +1 differential before the 7-game winning streak. They are at a +34 differential now. That they have outscored. I think they outscored teams 57-19, something ridiculous over the last few these last 7 games, and you could tell that the moment. I mean, obviously they come out and they beat the Angels 10-0 the moment that Girardi gets fired, and that you could tell that started the collective sigh of relief. And even when you listen to MLB Network, Joe Girardi did his podcast the day after he got let go, and he felt relieved. You could just hear it in his voice, where he sounded more enthused about not coaching this team than they ever did while coaching this team. And like I said, it's when you're in New York, you can get hidden by the other sports teams if things aren't going well. In Philly, you're under a microscope, and there are 2 things that are always happening: whatever you're doing and the Eagles are all. And if the Eagles ain't got much going on as they do in the summer, you're stuck. And that's kind of what the thing was. It's just that he was stuck, and every decision was getting Monday morning quarterbacked, and a lot of those decisions were improper decisions. They were just incorrect decisions. And I don't care what the manual says. You know what I mean? It's, I look at what the Giants are doing, and obviously Gabe Kapler is doing a really good job over there. And I mean, obviously I can't stand him, and I don't think he did really well here, but it sort of was a testament to how he did coach here. He had less and he did more than Joe did. And it's more of just because we didn't really care for him that we're even having that conversation. But here he is. He's going out there and he reads the manual verbatim.
Yeah.
He could be anybody. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter because that book is really what's managing the Giants. And it's doing well for them.
And you know what else too? Like when Joe got fired, everyone was like, "Let's go find the next veteran manager out there." Joe Madden gets fired, everyone's like, "Oh, well, what about Joe Madden?" And it's like, how about this? We right now have Rob Thompson, who not only was he there for Joe Girardi and with Joe back in his Yankee days, but also he was here for Gabe Kapler as well. So Rob had he had front seats to what was going on between Gabe and Joe Girardi in their tenures. He knew exactly what was going on, and he could make mental notes, and he internally knew what exactly was wrong with the Phillies. And I think that once Joe got fired, he knew exactly what to do. And I think that's why the news, if you remember, the news came out the day of Game 1 against the Angels. I'm scratching my head like, why wouldn't you make this news on a Thursday, the day off? Like they had the day completely off. So, but then I'm thinking to myself now, like, okay, maybe it's because Rob actually had a fingerprint in what was going on, or he knew exactly what was wrong with this baseball team, and he made some adjustments. Look at the real changes with this team. And number one, it's not really a change, but every day since Rob Thompson's taken over, the batting lineup has pretty much consistently stayed the same. Maybe a couple tweaks here and there, mostly in the bottom half of the lineup. But that's really big. Like these guys feel comfortable knowing, like, all right, Kyle Schwarber is going to lead off. Rhys Hoskins 2. Bryce Harper 3, Castellanos 4. Like that gives of reassurance that they know what to do. All they got to do, show up and bring the bat. And I think that is really huge. Putting the trust into these pitchers. How many times, and you guys cannot lie, and the real Phillies fans know how many times throughout the seasons with Joe Girardi, and Joe would pull guys in the 6th, 7th innings, and you see them with their face like, man, I had more in the tank there, and I could have stayed out there. And you're seeing these guys going deep. And like I mentioned, that's helping out the bullpen. So Rob knowing what exactly was wrong with the team, it's been helping. And of course, I didn't even mention putting trust into the young kids. Bryson Stott is batting out of his mind right now, and he's had clutch at bats as well. Even Nick Maton had some big plays before he got hurt. So what's up, Frankie? It's good seeing you, man. Miss Frankie. Talked to him in a while, man.
Yeah, it has been a
Is he a
minute.
Yankees fan? Is that what it was?
He is a Yankees
That's
fan. He's a Yankees fan. He likes to go on the bandwagons of all those teams. I won't get into that right now, but it's, you know, good to see you, Frankie. Glad that
Absolutely,
you're joining
man.
us. I feel that there's been a couple things, and I think that there's got to be one more change that gets done to the lineup. I think that Schwarber's got to get moved to number 2. It's such a shame that Nick Maton got hurt, or Maton, whatever you want to call him.
Do you want a
it's
leadoff
shame.
guy?
I think he was priming himself up to be a leadoff guy. I think that he was doing really well, and the bat came in strong. And then of course he gets hurt, and so now he's going to be backed up a little bit. But like, even where Mickey Moniak, he came in and he didn't have a batting average for the first 4 games, and then he was getting pulled, and he was more worried about was he going to get sent back down again and things like that. And next thing you know, his bat starts coming alive. Schwarber started to come on a little bit, and I've been really critical of Schwarber in general. I knew that what we were getting was a career 230 hitter, and now he was batting 188, and he's not getting the walks because he's in the leadoff spot. That's not where he's supposed to be. Obviously, if we had somebody in the leadoff spot who was able to get on base, that would actually change, I think, some of his dynamics. He could start working some of those walks. I personally think he's probably better in the 4-hole or the 6-hole, depending on how you wanted to do that with, because I think he's better protecting Reese and then moving Castellanos back 1. So you could put Hoskins at the number 2 spot, or you could switch Schwarber and move Hoskins to the number 5 or 6 spot. I think Castellanos is not lived up to his potential yet, and you can move him down just a hair. And then 7, 8, and 9 being the kids. You know what I mean? Where it's, I think that, of course, when Nick gets back, it's going to take him a few more days to get himself back acclimated again. But I think that at that point, you're going to start to see maybe a couple of more tweaks so that we get ready for the second half of the season. And, there's been a couple of things I looked at, and there's been certain things that have amazed me about the way that the Phillies have been playing up to this point. They have been second in major leagues with games against teams above 500. They actually have had 35 games against teams above 500. Now, the only other team that has more is the Baltimore Orioles, who have had 40 games against teams above 500. But we have had 35 games. In retrospect, both the Braves and the Mets have only had 25 games. Their schedule is going to get harder. Ours is going to get easier because there's only a certain amount of teams that are above 500. You know what I mean? So, we've played more than half of our games against teams above 500. Well, you know what? There's a lot of teams that are below 500 starting today. The Diamondbacks, which are a better team than everybody thought they'd be right now.
A couple of those teams like that.
But they are, 3 games under 500. Actually, they played 2 more games than us, so they have kind of a similar record to us. And we get to see how do we go up against their ace today. So we get to see if these bats are still going. However, they've got, and they're 3 games under 500, but their run differential is minus 42.
It's going to be interesting. And this is going to be the real test, right? Because, look, we've seen before the Phillies beating good teams. Like, we've seen that before. But remember, they've typically struggled against teams that where you would feel as if that they should spank them, and they've lost series. I mean, I remember the Diamondback series last year in Arizona, and that was just atrocious. The bats just looked absolutely flat in a dome. You expect them to do what they did against the Brewers in that dome, but it's going to be really interesting to see how the Phillies continue this streak. Will they overlook a team like the Diamondbacks? It's every series is going to be a test. I mean, because it is the Phillies. I mean, just because Rob has been undefeated so far as a manager through 6 games, I mean, us as Phillies fans, we can't help but have those thoughts in our mind. You know, those series against the Rockies, the Pirates, and the Diamondbacks that we had before. And by the way, we do have a series with the Marlins within this month as well, and we all know how that can be a horror show as well. But no, as long as these guys continue playing with this edge that they've been playing with, and I really do feel like they are more of a team than ever before. I feel like they are bought in what Rob Thompson's telling these guys, and they just have belief in one another. The young kids have been also, we didn't mention this, but the young kids have really been pushing these veteran players. Didi Gregorius had a really good game. He was the best batter yesterday. He went 3 for 5 yesterday, and he had some solid at bats. And I really do feel like seeing what Bryson Stott has been doing, and even Nick Maton, seeing these young kids playing the way they do, and seeing that, listen, Rob Thompson, not Joe Girardi, you're not safe anymore. And the same thing goes for Odubel Herrera. Like, if you guys are not performing, Rob Thompson has no problem with benching your ass. So now these guys have to perform. They don't have the saving grace of Joe Girardi. So it's going to start today. We'll see how they face off against these teams. And look, we don't expect these guys to sweep every single opponent, but you got to get these series wins, right? A couple series wins put you back into business. But Rob's out a lot of damage. I think they're now 2 games under 500 or a game under 500. One game under 500. It's wild. We were a week ago wondering, are we going to even make the playoffs at 22?
We were 8 games under 500. Crazy. So I mean, and just to think, what the difference a day makes is, as funny as I explain it that way, but it's been a week, and you think about, in the last 5 games, is it 4 games, they've hit a home run in the 9th inning. It's funny because I keep watching that number and it keeps having to come down some, because every 9th inning they seem to hit more home runs, and it was at minus or plus 500. Then it was at a plus 450. Then at a plus 450. Then yesterday it was a plus 400. So they have been, tacking on runs, which is something that they're not used to doing. I mean, we haven't seen them. However, that was something that we expected. I didn't expect this team to win games 3-2. I expect this team to win games 10-8, 12-10. That's what I expect from these Phillies, and that they got to get out into these big leads so that the bullpen has a cushion, so that if they start giving up some runs, that they still have that cushion. And the bullpen, as of very late, has been doing their job. Yeah. Obviously it's, the Angels, we had to still come back after coming back to tie it. We still had to come back to win it, but when they're on the road, they seem to pitch better. And that could be a little bit of, the fatigue of playing at home. Like I said, it's not easy to play in Philly, and, our team, our fans are going to let you know when you're not doing your job well enough. And, I've been to a lot of Phillies games this year. It has been tough to watch some of this pitching, do their job.
I bet. And how about the Phillies yesterday? They didn't tattoo Corbin Burnes, who at the moment is the Brewers' ace, because they've been going through some injuries with their staff. But they put him in a tough spot. And yesterday was like a tale of two halves with the offense. I really felt like through the first half, especially when Corbin was in the game, they really did a good job of just playing a little small ball, advancing runners, getting hits, not swinging for the fences. And then all of a sudden in the last 3 innings, these bats just are up for 5 runs in the last 3 innings. And that's what we're talking about. And for me, it's about finding different ways to win with these bats, because I get it. They're big bats. We know they can hit home runs. I think right now they're leading the National League in home runs as a team. So we know that they can do that. But there are going to be moments where you're not going to be able to swing over the fences. You got to find different ways of winning. You mentioned Mickey Moniak. I really feel like Mickey has demonstrated intelligence and also selflessness. When I see Bryson Stott, and I think this was the bottom of the 6th, Bryson Stott gets the walk. And Mickey Moniak at that moment says to himself, I got to advance Bryson Stott to second because there's no outs, and then I got the top of the rotation after me. I'm going to let the top of the rotation try to advance Bryson Stott to bring him home. And he just gets a sacrifice bunt. And I'm like thinking to myself, like, wow, that's a young player right there who made a really good baseball play. And that's the type of play that it's going to take.
and put down the bunt.
Yeah.
And put down the bunt. I mean, that
Absolutely.
was the one thing. That was the one thing that we saw from Nick Madden in his first game. You know, he's not only did he hit the home run, but they had a suicide squeeze. How often do you see that? Like, first off, that's like almost like a lost art anymore. You
Yeah.
only see certain teams do that.
Yup.
But to go ahead and have that, I mean, you know, and obviously that was a heads-up play. It had to have been a controlled play because Odubel Herrera scored on that. You know, so you gotta be fast on the base pass, and he's been a little bit better on the base pass this year in comparison to previous years. He's also, I mean, beyond all of the outside stuff, he's been doing what he's supposed to be doing in terms of his personal life, and on the field, he's got an 850 OPS.
Yeah.
And there's no other. There's like, I think there's only one or two other center fielders who are in that category right now at a plus 800 or an 800 OPS. So those are the things that are just like a big deal. The small things. It takes some of the smaller things to happen to keep everything going in the right direction.
Exactly.
And I feel like it started with the big sigh of relief. And then everybody saying, okay, maybe now we can have a little bit of fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're having a good time. And so are the Braves, though. You know, so obviously during this 7-game winning streak, the Braves have had an 8-game winning streak. Now they have literally played where I am, like they played the Pirates. And then I think they played, who did they play right before them? Colorado. And I think the A's were in the mix of that. So it's like they have really taken it to the dreck of the Major League Baseball. So I'm like, okay. So they've won 8 games. That's fine. They're playing against teams that have a combined, 380 average, you know what I mean? Winning percentage. So I'm not really as concerned about this, that we're coming up against teams that have winning records. I mean, obviously the Angels were on a 8-game losing streak when they met us, and of course Madden gets fired. And then I heard like, well, maybe we should go after him. Why would we want a coach that just lost 12 straight?
We just got rid of one
out
of a losing
You know what I mean? Like, it was like I didn't like, and I understand Philly's got the knee-jerk reaction. They always are. They're always inquisitive. And that's what makes us really smart, sports-minded in general in Philadelphia.
We just get enamored with big names here in Philly.
A little bit. But like I said, the first question that came to our mind is like, why would we want him? He just had a 12-game losing streak,
right?
And then you think of Buck Showalter and what he's doing with the Mets right now, and I'm saying that he's really overachieving with the Mets. That the Mets are playing fantastic baseball. And you can't take that away from them.
Right.
And they're doing it without their 2 best pitchers. However, I don't feel that it's sustainable. I feel that they are going to come back down to earth.
Oh, yeah.
And that when they do, is it them that's going to Mets it up? Because they're good at Metsing it up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We know what happens in August and September for the New York Mets, man. And it's just, it feels like, and they've been going through some injuries. I think they, 2 nights ago against the Padres, they suffered 2 big injuries. I know Pete Alonso went down. I forget the other one.
Pete Alonso and then Starling.
Starling, yeah. So they're
both day to day right now.
They're starting to get some injuries there, and we'll see what happens. Anything really can happen, and it is a long baseball season. That's why I was telling our Mets fans to, hold the horses. It's great. You guys got off to a great start, but hey, you got first off, not only us for surging, but you also have the Braves who have proven to do that. So it's a long season.
and not only that, but you also have the Yankees that are also, between the 2 of them, they are the 2 best teams in baseball. So it's
crazy.
So New York has got a lot to cheer for right this second, which is good because their football teams and their basketball teams really stick out loud. And and really they do have the Rangers right now, who I thought had a really good chance. Just to briefly talk about this, because obviously there are playoffs going on. I mean, I love good hockey, and I tell you, I thought that the Rangers had enough strength to be able to get past Tampa Bay, but the moment that Tampa Bay got back home, they realized that their backs were up against the wall, and they did what good teams do. They clamped down. And now Vasilevsky looks like the Vasilevsky of old and last year, and the Rangers are now on the brink of getting beat. So it's interesting. And then we'll talk about basketball after the fact here. But we're going to bring on our first guest, who comes on every Friday on the Mac and Jack show. He was a good wide receiver. I thought he looked better in green than in blue. But he was drafted by the Eagles, or brought on to the Eagles, and then wound up at the New York Giants. Byron Williams. Good morning, Byron. How are you?
Hey, good morning.
Morning, Byron.
Good morning. How you doing?
Doing very well.
Really
so
good.
You know what? We didn't really touch on it very much, but might as well do it now, because the Eagles just finished their OTAs, and we heard a lot of good things come out of camp about our quarterback. And the first question that I have when I hear those types of things is that how much stock are we able to put in when a quarterback does really well in OTAs in comparison? Because I guess OTAs have a different feel to them than they did in the past, where your OTAs, you wore pads and it wasn't as structured as it is now, where you have a few days and then you have to have scheduled time off, where once you're in, you're in. How much stock can we really put into what just happened this past week in comparison to what's going to happen in September?
I think you put a lot of stock in it because of the timing. You get to know each other. You get to see the in and out. I mean, detailed information that's very important. I think a level of maturity is another thing as well, especially with quarterbacks playing in this league. And of course, the speed of the game. So you get Hurst should be more adapt to the different defensive schemes of things, and just the timing of everything. Getting familiar with the route running of the receiver. So I would put a lot of stock in it. I think it's gonna go a long way. It adds a lot of confidence, and then you can put in the intangible things like creating the plays and getting a feel for what receiver like to run what particular routes. It's amazing that, we had a group of receivers, and some guys can run the post route, the curls, the in and out routes, the different breaks and styles of routes. And some guys can't get off the line of scrimmage as quick as other guys. So it's a lot of things that I think that you get. But the OTAs is designed to get used to each other, to get familiar with the talent, skill level of every player. And of course, the level of maturity is very important. Then, when you see these guys with a C on their shirt, those are the captains, and those are the guys that help keep the glue to the team. So I think it's very important.
I think those are really good points. I mean, I've always said, like, this time of the year, and it leads into training camp. It's the foundations that you're laying for the season, and you're trying to get acclimated, like Mr. Byron said there as well. And so Jalen's been looking good, and he did this the same as last year. I did like seeing him getting that chemistry going down with some of these wide receivers. Obviously, we've been missing a couple wide receivers in OTAs as well. You had a guy like Deion Kane stepping up, a guy who's been a journeyman a little bit in the NFL. Hopefully he takes advantage of this opportunity here. And there was a new cornerback out there in James Bradbury, a former Giant, who it looked like Jalen Hurts was taking advantage of during these practices too.
Yeah, that's really good. You get a big player in the top 100 player and an impact player like Bradbury, to come in and add a little bit more leadership to the defense. And I think it's just going to add more, security to what you can do. And I think going in, I'm predicting Philly to be the NFC East. And a lot of people don't want to hear it from me, but I just seen some of the things that they added. And I think if the players can stay healthy, I think they have a good shot at being the NFC East division champion.
Well, I 100% agree with you there. Even though we are doing the Mac and Jack show, and sometimes Mac would then turn around and put on the the Twilight Zone. But let's talk a little bit about the Giants. And I don't know how much you've been following their OTAs, but as you think about what's going on, like I think about what's happening in Philadelphia and how they are backing their quarterback 100% right now. In New York, it's not doing the same. They've decided not to extend Daniel Jones. As a player who feels that they do not have that vote of confidence, what is his mindset going into those training camps and those OTAs where he just doesn't, he may not feel as wanted? And then I'm going to caveat that so that we can start to think about kind of what's happening in Cleveland, because I know everybody's got an opinion about that too. So I'd like to start with the Giants and then go right into Cleveland.
Well, I think Daniel Jones right now is Saquon, and looking at the OTAs and what's happening with a couple of receivers. There we got a guy named Richie James from the 49ers there that's doing well. I think it's new chemistry, new coaches, new leadership there, and I think you just as long as you still in that position and as long as you still the leader, and he needs to take on the leadership role more. I think leadership is very important for a quarterback. I know Phil Simms did it, and a couple other guys did it when we had Jeff Hostel and people like that. So I think it's very important that he just stay focused on what he needs to do while he's there in command and the timing of everything. I wouldn't worry about them not renegotiating my contract right now. I know he have another year option or so forth, but if I was him, I would take it in stride as well as do what I can do right now. And OTAs is so important. I think you go in with a positive attitude, and they can feel that he's still the man there. They haven't relented his job or anything like that. So I just think he's still the guy, and a lot of people still have confidence in him, and he still make a lot of plays. And I think he needs to just go in there and just stay focused on what he can control. And the key thing I always say with Daniel Jones is his pocket presence, just knowing the strength of his offensive line and being able to adapt with the angles. And he done had a lot of players. Another thing too, a lot of receivers in and out been hurt and not consistent with the tight end position. So it's a lot of things, other things that matter. And just take it in stride and just continue to stay focused on being the leader of that team.
So, and that being said, and I don't. Then you have what's happening over in Cleveland, and just off the cuff, what's your opinion?
Well, football is so many moving parts to the game, and in my opinion, with Deshaun Watson, you knew that going into this, you're gonna have a lot of distractions, and Baker Mayfield was the guy that was there. I think football players have to understand that you're only good as your last play, and you don't control hardly anything for us when they make the decision on where they want to move you, trade you, or put you on the trading blocks or whatever. But it's one of those games where it's a short window of opportunity sometimes. But with the distractions and things like that, when you got the law involved and you got other intangible things involved, it's kind of hard to predict. But for his talent level and skill sets and making things happen on the football field, Deshaun Watson is a guy. But I also think that he needs some mentoring. He needs some other things to add to complete his life. And so those things are very hard to say and comment on. But yet I think a lot of these players, some players do need mentoring and need other older guys who've been a part of this league, who have developed this league, for longevity is so important, and your name is so important. So it's kind of hard to really pinpoint all the things, but you got to have the right leadership for management, upper management, with the general manager as well as the coaches. So it's a lot of intangible things involved. But you knew when you made this decision there's going to be some distraction and some things going on. So I was probably going to a football camp up there in about 3 or 4 weeks. But right now, I don't know if I want to go to Cleveland because it's so much noise in the atmosphere.
Oh my God!
Hey, if you're up there long enough and you throw a ball pretty well, they might use you as a quarterback because as of right this second, they told Baker they excused him from OTAs. That he does not need to attend, and of course now we just got the report out, or at least a portion of the report that says that that shows that there's really been a lot more activity than what everybody thought there was. It's not just the 23-24, which you kind of thought that was the case, but also how the Texans kind of allowed all this to occur. And that is, it makes me wonder how culpable they are with all of this. That it's like, okay, that your player's going through some of this, and hey, you're giving him NDAs to go get a massage, and you're setting up the location. You're setting up. I got to imagine if they're going to that great detail, they may have had cameras in there, and I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't, and that they have that under wraps.
Right.
But that all being said, it seems so weird, very strange that this is what they've got going on. Like, this is your franchise quarterback, and I guess I hear that you want to do everything you can to try to make sure he's happy, but do you want to do it at the expense of possibly your own franchise? And that this is what's now come of it, that now the Texans as a whole have been tarnished. I mean, I got to think ownership has been like, oh my God, what did we really do here? I mean, they haven't made really good decisions in general, but between their coaching and now their quarterback and everything. But I mean, it seems like it's just so outlandish, the things that are going on. And how do you let this continue to occur? But they do.
It's really one of the wildest things, because I mean, some of the teams were setting up these appointments for him, and it didn't make sense for them to do that and keep doing it, and thinking that this is ordinary. This is what we're supposed to do to make our man happy. And it's no such thing. And that just goes to show you that you got to have the right people in place from top to bottom to make sure that everything is automatically fine and that it's a well-oiled machine. Because now, once you get the scrutiny and you get out in the news and all this newsworthy stuff hit the fan, it's continued pausing. I mean, it's unheard of.
Yeah, and hello, Mario from down
Mario?
under. Like it says, we are international. We are international here today, where we're getting Australia in the mix. And
Let's go.
They did announce that in 2024, I think it is, that they are going to have a football game down there. The Rams versus the Cowboys.
That's our territory, Philly sports guy. It's
yeah,
Eagles
actually,
territory.
That is Eagle territory. They did announce that Australia and New Zealand
And Ghana.
and Ghana were Eagle territory, so we get to go promote down there.
The Eagles, man, they flying high.
they are. Well, you know what? The Eagles have always been really good at looking at the Australian Rules Football League, and pulling guys out of there. Normally, it's punters, but I mean, like Sav Rocco was a great punter here for a couple of years, and then of course pulling out Jordan Mailata, who could very well arguably be the best offensive tackle this year if he does everything the way that we expect him to, plus the fact that he's just a monster in general. That all being said,
fans, they are the rock solid fans, I tell you that.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And they do love it. Mario has been here a couple of times to witness Eagles games firsthand. That's how we met. So he got to meet me in all my splendor, and we've remained friends ever since. So every once in a while, I get a phone call from Australia, just checking in to make sure everything's good.
Let's keep the international flair going, man. When they're ready for Columbia, all they got to do is call me. I'm ready, Eagles. Let's go.
There you go. Oh, well, who knows who got Columbia? So they do have the stadiums down there.
I was gonna say the Eagles are covered globally, so that's good. That's really good.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
That being said, as I think about this, and let's go back to the NFC East. I know that what I think about the Eagles is one thing, and it's of course I have them right now going to the NFC Championship game. I can't see beyond that. I don't know that they're going to win that game or not, but I do think that they're going to make that that giant step forward. The rest of the NFC East, like, of course, hearing from Dallas fans, and you live in Dallas, so you probably hear it much more frequently than I do, that they are just as optimistic as they are every year. However, I got to imagine that they are maybe not, that this year more than any other year, it's lip service and not necessary belief. What is your thoughts? Since you're on the ground, you got boots on the ground down there in Dallas. So what do you think is happening down that way?
I think first of all, it seems like they working hard in the off season. It's not a whole lot of news making going on. Usually one of the players either messed up by now, they made the news, doing something crazy. But right now, they're trying to sign their tight end Schultz, and that's been on the news here lately. Of course, Dak Prescott and a couple of receivers. The receiver that they drafted from Alabama State, I think, is doing well. Things like that. They're trying to replace Amari Cooper, and they, talking about what the offense looked like. CeeDee Lamb done gained a couple of pounds and look good. So things like that I've been hearing. I did talk to Mike McCarthy this offseason. He's very optimistic about what's going on. And, they're still talking about the Dallas Cowboys, the Green Bay Packers date later on in the year. But, it's me and Jim Jeffcoat talk about a lot of the Cowboy stuff. I did talk to Keith Davis last night. He going to Murray and Barber's the third funeral up in Minnesota. We had a death here in Dallas. And of course, by me being a part of the NFL PA, we're going to try to support that cause and make sure that some of the players, get to support him and his family. And then I'm having a meeting this week with the NFL Players Association with a lot of retired former Dallas Cowboys coming to the meeting. And so we do get to hear ins and outs of stories. But overall, they real optimistic about Dallas going to be the NFC East division champion again. And I'm saying no, I don't think so. But it's always good to be here in Dallas to have the boxing gloves on to fight everybody and say, hey, you guys hadn't done nothing. And then this year is my 28th consecutive football camp. So,
Nice.
So my campus will be in yellow and blue, and I always celebrate the guys who win the Super Bowl at the camp. So whoever wins the Super Bowl, that's the color of the T-shirts be. So I said I ain't had no blue and gray shirt in a long time, so that's my way of getting back at them. But other than that, it's fun living down here in Dallas.
I was going to say, you've been doing it for 28 years. So the last time you did that was like year 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So, and I got to imagine it's always a little bit of fun because you obviously you live in Dallas now and you are the representative for the retired players. And so I'm sure there's tons of Dallas Cowboys and their rep is a Giants guy. So yeah. I kind of like that, even though it's not you don't represent the Eagles down there. I know that you represent more Giants, and you had a cup of coffee with the Eagles. I still love trolling them for that.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember we came down last year. We had a good time, and we hosted that event over there at the Texas Live.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's a shame that, of course, this year is Christmas Eve, and it's going to be a lot more difficult for me to try to make it down there because it's just that time of year, and having kids and stuff like that. However, I may bring the whole family down, so we may be coming to Christmas dinner, just so that you're aware. Make an extra reservation for 4 or 5, just so that we're going to be under the Christmas
tree. Make it happen.
Yeah, there you go. I told Jim the same thing. I'm gonna be traveling around on Christmas, going to see all my Dallas families down there. So,
well, I tell you what, and if the Eagles come down here and get them a Christmas present, a green Christmas present, that would be super.
Well, you know what, and I believe, I believe, like you think back in who was it? Jeff Garcia, who said, "Merry Christmas, Philadelphia." That was one of the best trolls. The best trolls of all time, where we beat Dallas and he just looks right into the camera and says, "Merry Christmas, Philadelphia." He was enshrined that day as as a Philadelphia guy going in. Amongst it, going beyond the NFC East, obviously they give Aaron Donald, the Rams give Aaron Donald, that $31 million a year deal, like $93 million guaranteed, and it's just. First off, I mean, I know that this is a business and I know that they can play with the numbers, but first off, where did they find the money? And then secondly, do you feel that he's worth that amount? Yeah, me personally, I do not, but I want to hear what you have to say.
I think, I'm never against players getting money, and I'm happy for them and their family because it's changed the dynamic of everything for them. But, I don't know how they can keep managing this with the salary cap the way it is. But somehow, I guess some of these general managers and financial guys can put these contracts and deals together, which is good. I think it's good for football, but I also know that in the long run, it might come back to hurt you and bite you in the butt because of the way the game is set up with injuries and how one play can still be changed. But right now, he's still the dominant defensive player, of the league. So I'm happy that it's happening, but I also know that if I was playing, I'd be excited. But I always say, if I were playing, man, what is it that we can do? But I think sometimes too, we still need to focus on some of the retired players and some of the things that they have, because we weren't talking about concussions back in the day. We weren't talking about injuries, and guys come to our meeting. I done got calls, guys having to find their way home, and some guys coming out with these big old knees and their fingers all twisted still, and when we played and when some of the guys played in my time frame, we didn't get the care and some of the things that need to be happening. I think we need to set aside a lot of money to take care of some of these old guys who helped set the game the way it is now. But with this huge contract, I think they can come in and get some of the older players a little bit more, increasing their salaries, pension, and things like that. I think healthcare and wellness goes a long way. I think we have came a long way with our collective bargaining agreement on setting up these different programs. But I think there needs to be more in place, especially for guys who live in rural areas and other cities that don't get the care that they need.
Mr. Williams, I really do think you bring up some really good points. We all love football here, but I do think that we need to remember that, football players do have a life beyond football. And the sport that we all watch and love, let's face it, it is a pretty violent sport that we play, but we still love it. For everyone who is a football fan, please do the disservice to yourself and watch the movie Concussion with Will Smith in it. Like, when I watched that movie, it really opened my eyes. And, when they reenact Dirty Waters, who was a former Eagle, and what he was going through in his final days, like, it is really eye-opening. And I do agree with you. We do need to set aside there. We need to take care of our former players, because if it wasn't for what came before, we wouldn't have the Aaron Donalds today, the Aaron Rodgers today, and so on and so forth. So you really do bring up some good points there, Mr. Williams.
Yeah, thank you. I think we still need to talk about that more. And what's good about the NFL Players Association, we've been trying to establish these chapters across the country. We got 34 chapters, not necessarily in the NFL cities, but we do have former players that need to be addressing the needs and concerns of their well-being.
Yeah, I mean, and even with the unfortunate, untimely death of Eva Marion Barber, you know what I mean? Who, when I watched what was done by the wide receiver from the Cowboys, Des Bryant, when he came out, and you could tell, like, what he was saying was kind of heartfelt. Was just like he knew that he wasn't doing well and he wasn't in a good place. And obviously I didn't get to see the report on, what happened, and how he passed, but I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The guy was 39 years old,
right,
and still way too young to not be here anymore. You know what I mean? We're not above the grass for very long in general. And, to go way before his time. And so there should be, it's not just concussions and, broken fingers and stuff like that. There's a mentality that also goes along that when, and I say that football players, drive at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And when you get off the freeway and you're on the regular roads, you can't drive 1,000,000 miles an hour. And when you don't know how to drive any other way, it becomes really difficult. It's a PTSD.
Yeah.
Of sorts, and that really needs to get addressed in a lot of ways. I'm sure that he's not the only one that's out there. This happens a lot more frequently than others. So,
want to say this. The stats show that the average football player lives to be 53. And, the average football player play anywhere between 2 to 3 years on an average overall. So there's about 22 to 25,000 former players out here. And we have about 400 to 500 deaths a year of guys dying. So it's really still a small class of guys, and it's a unique group. But we like I said, we got to get better and do better to make sure that these guys can have a longevity and better livelihood.
Is there possibly anything we can do as fans, maybe bring some sort of awareness to the situation?
Yeah, I think, fans been great. I think everybody know that, players are very private as well. Sometimes they don't want people to dig into their livelihood. Like a lot of guys, and this mental component part just came out, last couple of years. So we're getting better in that department. We're getting better in setting up wellness centers and healthcare initiative with Mayo Clinics and Tulane Institute. I've been down there to get a physical. And so what we try to do is keep these guys actively engaged to let them know what they qualify for, what's out there. The most serious thing that we can all do is go and get checked up, get physicals and things like that. And that's very important. But, I just think, too, if you play 1 year, if you sign a contract, because you still have some issues going from college. And I think we still need to include these guys as well. And sometimes we don't include the first year and second year guys in some of the things that need to be, addressed for them as well.
Realistically, those players, those guys are preparing from the Pop Warner days all the way to high school, like you said, and in college. And there's a lot of wear and tear on their bodies already or heading into the NFL.
Yeah. And it's funny that Matt got on me the other night when me and Jim was on the day. Byron, you got to talk to these guys. They making the game softer. This game ain't fun watching. You don't see, these guys are baby and they complaining a lot. I say, Matt, we got to consider the fact that the game has changed and the rules have changed, and the concussion protocol is different. So there's a lot of things that's in the equation that's not the same no more, and we have to make those adjustments.
So, and let me ask this question: with the NFLPA, do you just have to have had an NFL contract to allow you to be part of that?
Yeah,
or is it?
Yeah, absolutely. You if you sign an NFL contract, you are a member of the NFLPA, and we have a portal that you can sign in, and you qualify for certain things as the number of years that you play. Once you get vested 3 years or more, you completely vested, so you qualify for everything.
Is Troy Vincent still the president?
Troy Vincent is he's the right up under the Roger Goodell. Yeah, he's with the NFL headquarters up in New York.
Any good stories of Troy that you've seen in personally?
Have you what? I didn't hear you.
Any good personal stories with Troy Vincent?
Yeah, I got his number. He never answers the phone, but
yeah, I was trying to get his attention at the draft. He looked our way and gave a wave, but that was about it. We're like, hey, we want to get a picture, but he can't say that he's an Eagle.
Yeah, he's a lot to. I don't know, but I have his number. I'm gonna send it to you. So every day, let's keep watching and see if we can get him to call us back. Nice. And, hear from him on the other side. About him being with the NFL commissioner. What I like about Troy's office, though, they do try to stay engaged. They more in with the legends part of the group. They have a legend department, and they kind of help. Like, we want to set up a meeting in New York. They're supposed to let me have the office. We go in there and have a good meeting. So they supposed to have it open to the players. So they doing some things that's really good.
Man, Troy Vincent and Bobby Taylor, that's what made me fall in love with the sport. Those two manning the cornerback positions with the Eagles back in those days.
I know Bobby Taylor real well. We grew up 70 miles apart.
Nice.
He's from Longview. He lives in Houston now. He's a great family man. Man, Bobby Taylor was a hell of an athlete. When I was high school, his name is all over the place. He not only was good in football, he was good in basketball. They won the state championship in track. And so Bobby Taylor, man, hats off to Bobby. He's a class guy from day one. I tell you, I love Bobby.
Yeah, we loved him here too. In Philadelphia, Yeah, he's always going to be well known. If he came up here, most of the time, if they recognized him, he wouldn't have to buy a beer.
Yes.
So,
Absolutely, man. He's a great guy.
well, Byron, we do appreciate your time coming on with us today. Thank you again for coming in. Obviously, probably next week you'll see Mac or Jack or both here, but we do appreciate you stopping in while we are filling in for them.
Man, you guys are doing an awesome job. I appreciate you guys, and thank you guys so much. I'll have to tell Matt to keep the hat on because you guys did an awesome job.
Hey, there you go. I appreciate
sir.
that. Thank you very much, Byron. You have a
one.
great
Thank
day.
you.
Good week.
All right, guys, have a great weekend.
Take care. So, and there we have it. Byron Williams. He always comes on a Friday. He
Nice.
does a great job. And you know what? He does a great job with the NFLPA and also in his organization. He does those camps for kids and stuff like that. And he goes not just in Dallas. He goes around the country to do those types of things. And it's, it takes a lot of time and a lot of energy that he goes out there and puts out there. And it's, it's all for the good of not just like the youth, but then also the retired players and the players that have been, just kind of, you think of Marion Barber, and of course he was a known guy. But then there's guys that, that you don't think of, that you just, the Joe Smith, who played 3 years or 4 years as a special teamer, who didn't really get his name mentioned very much and still suffers some of those same difficulties and same challenges that these other players have. And just because, they were on the suicide team, they're going down there and they're just, headstrong, going right into going after the ball and just getting crushed in every direction. So, there's a lot of PTSD in football in general. So it's challenging, and it's difficult to watch some of that stuff. So, I'm not a guy that says thoughts and prayers go to anybody. You know what I mean? I wish the best to the Barber family and hope that they are able to find some type of relief in the grief that they're feeling. It's tough, especially when there's somebody who is 39 years old. It's just too young to be gone. And maybe, sometimes a death like this brings awareness to others, that they say, wow, if it happened to him, maybe somebody who's just a little depressed says, okay, maybe I need to go get some help, because I can't just assume that everything's just going to be okay.
Yeah, it's to me, like, look, when it comes to football, we look at these athletes like galactic heroes, and we expect them to be Supermans and just going out there no matter what it is and just go and perform. But we don't see what goes on behind closed doors. We don't see what they're going through internally, what injuries or what's going on in their head. And so I do think that we just need to have a little bit of that awareness. Like, even like, I remember when Zach Ertz was here, and dude was literally battling through some tough injuries, and he was going out there and playing and pissing blood, and fans like, Zach better be playing this weekend's like, the dude's literally pissing blood. Like, if he doesn't play, I don't blame him for not playing, but obviously Zach is just built a little bit differently. But I feel like in general as fans, like, we just need to have just that little bit of a human touch. Just remember that, we love the Birds and we want to see them win, but do you want to see some of these players, in 10 years down the line putting a bullet through their head? Like, no, we don't want to see that. We don't want to see a player in a wheelchair after the game, because at the end of the day, what are we talking about? We're talking about a game. And I do think that the NFL needs to continue their reinforcements to find the technology and finding different ways of keeping these players safe. Like, do the rules suck? Yeah, some of these rule changes do suck, but I will never ever argue anything that helps player safety, because at the end of the day, I'm a human being. You guys are human beings, and I want to see these guys have some longevity, not only in football, but in their life personally.
I 100% agree. And on that note, we're going to do our midway break here. So we're going to be back here in just a few minutes after these important messages from old. So I love showing some of these old commercials. So we'll be back here in about 3 minutes time with the second half of the show, where we'll actually talk about a little bit of basketball, a little bit of hockey, and some more Philadelphia stuff. So stay tuned.
My baloney has a first name, it's O-S-C-A-R. My baloney has a second name, it's M-A-Y-E-R. Oh, I love to eat it every day, and if you ask me why, I'll say, 'cause Oscar Mayer has a way with B-O-L-O-G-N-A.
Oscar Mayer, the first name in Bologna.
How's that?
There are times when only an ice-cold beer will do. And there are times, like this one, when it's got to be Schaefer. Schaefer, like any fine beer, tastes wonderful in that first cold glass. But, and this is what really sets Schaefer apart, the pleasure of this beer doesn't fade after one glass or two. Even after your thirst is gone, the pleasure of ice-cold Schaefer keeps coming on. Your last one is every bit as rewarding as your first. That's why
Schaefer is the one beer to have when you're having more than one.
Mr. Green? Mr. Green?
Yeah.
You need any help?
Mm-mm.
I just want you to know, I think you're the best ever.
Yeah, sure.
Want my Coke? It's okay, you can have it.
No.
Really, you can have it.
Okay.
A Coke and a smile makes me feel good. Makes me feel nice.
See you around.
That's the way it should be. I like to see
Hey, kid.
the whole world is smiling with me. Coca-Cola as life. Have a Coke and
Thanks, Mean Joe.
smile.
When you drive to Wendy's and order a single, you get more beef than the Whopper or the Big Mac. At Wendy's, you never have to ask, where's the beef?
The Hometown Foundation is excited to bring back the Dream Ride experience, August 26th to the 28th at Connecticut's Farmington Polo Club. Join us in celebrating the accomplishments of our Dream Riders while enjoying live music, a car and motorcycle show, family fun zone, pet adoptions, canine demonstrations, the Fireman's Chili Cook-Off, and much, much more. Get your tickets today.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboys fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready. I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face.
Oh, I'm from Brooklyn.
Hey, get it each.
And we are back. And real quickly, I just wanted to just announce, everybody knows that I have traveled with Philly Sports Trips, and we're headed out to Pittsburgh for the Phillies Pirates series at the end of July. So, and it is a great trip. We're staying at the Omni William Penn Pittsburgh Hotel. We're going to be there from Thursday to Sunday, the 28th to the 31st. The games are included our Friday and Saturday. And we're going to be there early on Thursday so that you could get there and go to the Thursday game if you wanted to. Pittsburgh's a great town. I know I get a lot of Pittsburgh love from all my Pittsburgh people out there. So I am going
The Inses?
so that everybody knows we could have some fun out there for all my Pittsburgh people. You go to phillysportstrips.com to go find out all the details. Trips start at $5.99 and go up from there. So hopefully get to see a bunch of you guys there. All right. To start the second half of our show, we always have TGI Sports Keith Engel join us. And, of course, he's backstage right now. Let me bring him right on.
What happened?
Good morning, Keith.
Jack went through some kind of youth machine or something. What happened here?
Yeah, he's got a lot more hair than he's used to.
Now, I'm not used to being the oldest guy in the show. I got Jack to fall back on. Now I don't.
Yeah, at least not today. So I'm sure they'll be back soon enough. So normally, if it's because I'm close, but you're definitely grandpa right now.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, Keith.
So
how you doing?
We're doing well. You know what? We haven't spoken anything about it yet, so we might as well start about it now. And what have your thoughts been about the NBA championships?
The Warriors look old to me. I mean, they rely Klay Thompson, who's certainly still a really good player, above average player in the NBA. He's just not the Klay Thompson he was before he got hurt. That's obvious. They rely too much on Steph Curry, and when he has nights like he had the other night, they're going to be in trouble. And they don't wear the Celtics down at all. Everything is still, 3-point shots. If they don't go inside and wear down Tatum and you watch a guy like Al Horford, sometimes it feels like he's as old as me. I don't know how old he is, but it feels like he's been around forever. And he just eats them alive some nights. The Celtics look like they're going to be too young and too fast for this Warriors team to come back on. I don't see the Warriors winning a game in Boston. I really don't.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. And you know what? The Draymond Green thing going, there's just, I know he was trying to deflect, but I feel like he did the worst thing he could possibly do. He didn't deflect at all. He kind of made things worse.
Draymond just opening his mouth is always the worst thing he can do. So, just the
way he kind of throws everybody off the game is funny. He tries to bully people out of thinking the game. And, I just don't think Boston is really that team that's going to be able to take that.
No, I don't think so either. And I think they go deeper than the Warriors. And Draymond Green's another guy that, this is not a young team. The core of this team, they got some young guys that contribute for sure. But the core of this team that was around for the championships, they are not young guys anymore. Steph Curry's 34. Draymond's got to be 30, close to it, if not, if he plays like he's 50 some days. Sometimes all he's got is that physical part of his game. The rest of it seems to be gone more often than not. And he still wants to go out there and shoot 3-pointers. What's he doing hanging around the 3-point line? Why isn't he inside banging with those young Boston guys? I don't understand. Maybe he's tired. Maybe he's resting. I don't know.
Man,
and that's what I kind of feel. I feel like they need to get leaned on some.
Yeah.
Is that that's what they did in game 2. So they leaned on them, and that leaning came out with a victory. Does it seem to me like these are either team's going to win big, and that none of these games are going to be close games?
It feels like. I mean, it's funny. Game 1, I don't think it was. The Warriors dominated 3/4 of that game. People forget. I mean, they got blown out. It looked like a blowout at the end because they gave up 40 points and only scored 16 in the fourth quarter. But they had a 14-point lead at the end of the third quarter. They were dominating that game when the wheels just came off. And even in game 2, I thought they played pretty well for 3/4. So I could say, again, it only matters who wins the games, right? But the first 2 games, I thought the Warriors were better for 4 out of 6 quarters. But, it doesn't win games all the time either. So, but I think that the way they finish speaks to the fact that, Boston's got younger, fresher legs.
Right. I think a little bit of a deeper bench. I mean, it was at one point it was 82-80 in game 3. that they were only down by 2 points, and then Boston went ahead and never looked back after that. But
and I see a guy like Steve Kerr, and this will be a little off topic of the series itself, but I watch Steve Kerr and I see a guy who just looks, I mean, he's had some health issues with his back over the years, and he's had COVID a few times the last couple of years. I see a guy who looks tired, and I wouldn't be shocked to see Steve Kerr say, I need some time off and and walk away from this job, no matter win or lose. I could see him walking away after the series.
It's been tough being the coach of the Warriors. I mean, these guys have been consistently good. Obviously, they had those 2 years where they, were kind of retooling, and that's where you saw a lot of them get a lot of those young pieces. But it's been a tough, and not even for Steve, but you mentioned the core there. Your Curry, Thompson, Green. Those guys have been together for a long time. A lot of deep playoff runs. And it's going to be a tough one. They're going to really have to dig deep, because when I'm looking at this Boston Celtics team, you guys have mentioned the youth. You guys also see as well some of the star power that they have with a guy like Tatum, a guy like Brown, and also Al Horford is playing as a star player. I know that the Philly sports guy is probably hurting seeing that as I am, but the rebounds, the ball movement, like it's the little things, the attention to details. I think that's why the Boston is at where they're at, and it just bodes for an interesting finals. And when you're a sports fan, you like that dramatic portion of the sport. So it's gonna be interesting to see how the Warriors bounce back here.
I wonder how the Nets feel watching a guy who maybe should be their coach patrolling the Celtics sideline.
How do you think we feel here in Philly?
Oh, well, yeah.
Well, and you know what, Carlos makes a good point here. That's how I thought Boston would win this series, that in the paint, that they would need to be able to be banging the boards. And when they do lose, when they start losing the lead, they do start to rush threes. And that's why I feel that, and I felt that was part of the Sixers' problem, that the Sixers had the ability to get inside the paint and control the paint most of the time. And that's how we would have beaten Miami, instead of trying to get three after three after three. And I feel like Boston's got a little bit of that going on in them. I think that Boston uses the paint a lot more frequently than the Sixers do. And that's why I thought that if the Sixers did wind up getting past Miami, that we would have been better suited to play against Milwaukee, not Boston. I thought that Boston maybe would have killed us. It might have been like a 5-game series. I think that it would have been really not fun watching, just because of the way that the two teams are constructed. And plus, Boston's coach seems to outcoach us all the time.
Outcoaches a lot of guys, so.
But maybe to a point as well. Maybe this finals will teach us something. Like I bring it back to the NFL. Like we've seen kind of the change of the NFL, where everyone wants to pass the ball, everyone wants to throw the ball 50, 60 times. And you can kind of relate to that with the 3 ball. Like everyone wants to shoot the 3 ball. Now I do think, just like in the NFL, you do need to be able to throw the ball. But some of these playoff teams are successful at running the ball. And I think that in the NBA too, like, yeah, you do need to shoot the ball, but shoot the ball from the 3-point line, but you also need to take advantage from the inside, finding ways to score baskets with inside. Obviously, these players today in the NBA, these guys all play with a high pace and high intensity, and obviously they're running up and down these courts, but you still need to bang the boards, and I think that these finals might be able to teach you that, with the Warriors trying to shoot the lights out.
It's a great comparison, because in the NFL, the running game has been de-emphasized, as we know, as you said, but you still need to run the ball to be able to close out games. The good teams run the ball to close out.
Really helps.
And in the NBA, take the ball, bang the boards, bang the ball inside. That's how you close out games once you get a lead. You lose leads by throwing up 3-pointers when you're up 15 points, right? It's a good comparison, I think.
Well, plus when you think about all of that stuff, and now you can bring it even to baseball, where you think of, everybody is playing for these 2- and 3-run home runs. That's how these lineups are set up for. And that when you have a team that plays total small ball, like the Rays did, like I think it was 2 years ago, where it was literally all small ball.
Yeah.
And those still win. That when you go against everything that the analytics say that they do, that if you play the way that the game was played back in the day, that Philadelphia was a good way. We ran the ball 60% of the time, and we were beating teams left and right. Like that, those things actually do matter, and that You could have all the analytics and you could try to change the game all you want to, but what works still works and will always work. And that's the good thing. You're right. If you rebound more, if you get 5, 6, 7 offensive rebounds more than the other team, you're going to get some of those, back, second chance points and third chance points. Those are going to matter more than, how many threes you get. And that's where I feel like that the power forward or just the forward who just gets the rebounds and everything is just no longer, they've lost that spot. It's almost like you have 2 4s now instead of a 4 and a 5, or a 3 and a 4, however that works. It's just so I feel that there's so much different that is with the NBA this year that if you go back to some of the basics, that a team who scores all the points in the paint, if you're scoring 50 to 60% of your points in the paint, by just playing bully ball, you're going to win games because then most of these other teams aren't shooting 40 or 50% from 3-point range.
Yeah, and these teams tend to be cyclical, right? People it's all these leagues are copycat leagues, right? Yeah. So if somebody's successful with something, they all switch to it. Then the defenses catch up with it, and they figure out a way to change it, and then everything goes back the way that it was before. So, and it'll happen in all these leagues. Hopefully, it'll happen in baseball. I'm not so sure. That's the one that I'm not sure we'll ever get back to where we were.
I do think in the NBA, what will help, like you'll be a competitive team, is if you are athletic, especially out in those wings. I see a lot of these playoff teams; they have a lot of athleticism from those wing positions, and I feel like that'll give you a chance, a dying chance. And not to bring it back to the Sixers, but we could use a couple of those wing players as well.
How do you get 2 Philly guys hosting this show today? I don't get it.
Who let Philly take over?
Exactly. Well, we needed to be able to show a little bit better on Philly. Everybody, I always get Jack talking to me about the Flyers. Loves to just troll me about the Flyers. So, but going back to football a little bit, obviously there was OTAs, and so what's the story with the Patriots?
The big story is, what's the offense going to be? There's a lot of talk that they're going to change their entire offensive philosophy and go more to the Shanahan mode, which Carlos will love to hear when he hears this. The zone blocking and give the running backs 3 different reads, and it opens up the play action passing. Now that's a huge shift from what they've done for the last, well, I said 20 years, but they didn't run the same offense for 20 years, but they have for 10. And also who's going to call the plays, right? There's talk it'll be Joe Judge, which I hope not. Matt Patricia, who literally is a rocket scientist and did a great job on defense. I could see him switching to the offensive side. But at the end of the day, I think Bill Belichick is the guy who's going to have the say on the offense, and more than he's had in the past. He's always got the final say anyway, right? But I think you'll see him doing some play calling a lot more than he has in the past. And I think you're going to see a change in the way they approach the game to try to help Mac Jones and try to open up passing lanes for him, because they've got the running game. If the line can mature and stay healthy, this could be a really proficient team running the football, and the offense will. And you can keep the defense off the field, which still needs some help, by the way.
Well,
that'd be good for the Patriots.
So, do you think? So, when you say the Shanahan offense, I think more of the Frank Reich or Peterson offense with the RPOs.
Yeah,
that's where they're going to be able to do their most amount of damage, giving the quarterback the option
to run that though. That Mac Jones isn't going to be the guy who can run an RPO over and over again. You can throw it in there, once a game, but he can't do it over and over again like Hurts can.
But I think So I think what he's trying to say. So when Carson Wentz went down in 2017, and we brought Nick Foles in, we ran a lot of RPOs because what Doug realized when Chip Kelly was here, the RPOs in 2013 were really working at a high success. Mac Jones has enough mobility where you can run an RPO, but it's the threat of the run, and then it just opens up lanes, like you said as well. And that might be conducive for what you guys are trying to do the next season.
It's possible. There's so many questions of what will happen with this offense. Nobody really knows, and nobody's going to talk about it from the team, right? We'll find out game one. Who knows in the preseason? They may not even run their real offense of any of the preseason games. That's the way Belichick operates. So
you want to move on for Bill Belichick?
Listen, I really believe, and a lot of the experts are kind of underrating the Patriots. I think the over-under, most of the over-unders I saw for wins was like 8.5. I think this team can, if Mac Jones takes that next step and they can improve that defense even moderately, because that's what killed them. Remember, this team was in first place in December last year until the defense fell apart, and Buffalo's still running for first downs right now. That's what they have to fix. And if they fix some of that, this team can compete for this division.
Well, do you think that the game against Buffalo, where they only threw the ball 3 times, I think that was really the last meaningful win the Patriots had?
Yeah, because it was only a few weeks later they played Buffalo again and got just run out of the building. Yeah. And again, running the ball 3 times that game was, because of the conditions that night, obviously.
Well, passing the ball 3 times, and he didn't want to even pass it that time, right? So he said he didn't want to pass it those 2 times.
I was right.
But that being said, I mean, I felt like that forced him in a very specific way, and like I said, that was their last meaningful win for the season, really. I mean, I think they had one more win, but obviously beating the Bills, was a big deal. And of course it was really ugly conditions. It was cold, it was really windy and whatever would have you. But, I felt like that did a lot of different things for the Patriots in a bad way, or it gave everybody what every running play they had in the book used, and, and so on and so forth. And then everybody had the manual on how to beat Mac Jones.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. And again, he had a really good rookie season, but like all rookies, you don't have all the tricks in your bag yet, right? So once you figure the guy out, it gets much easier. And I think Buffalo gave teams that game plan. And after they lost to Buffalo the next time around, their season really spiraled after that. They made the playoffs, obviously, but then it was a repeat of that Buffalo regular season game in the playoffs. And it's all learning experience. So the good thing is Mac Jones seems to me to be a really resilient guy. He learns from his mistakes. He learns fairly quickly. He's gotten in much better shape, according to him, this offseason, and that will only help him as well, especially later in the season. And I think he's got the tools. I mean, I don't think he's a Patrick Mahomes who can carry a team on his back by any means, but he's definitely a competent NFL quarterback who can take a good team a long ways with complementary tools around him.
You're saying so he's a top 15 quarterback?
At this minute, maybe not. I think he can be.
Okay.
I think if he is, this team will go a little ways. They'll win a playoff game this year if he's a top. If he approaches top dozen, this team will win a playoff game this year.
I think that's very optimistic. I think that obviously there's a lot of talk happening about Tua. In Miami, and obviously that if there was a make or break year, I mean, there's 2 quarterbacks that I think of specifically when I hear make or break year this year: Hurts and Tua.
I agree.
Those are the two biggest names in quarterbacks that have to figure out whether they are going to be playing in the NFL next year or not. As a starter even, and I feel that. Certain things that I learned this week when you heard about Tyreek Hill saying that he didn't want to leave Kansas City, and he said that out loud. I tried to stay there. I wanted to be in Kansas City, and I don't. Is that a smack to Tua? Is that what that is?
It's funny. He didn't say it when he signed, but he said it after he had Tua throwing the ball to him a little bit the last couple of weeks. So maybe that that might have incentivized him to say what he said, because Tua is not Patrick Mahomes, even light, right? It's going to be.
How could you want to leave Kansas City though? That was a great situation. I mean, I don't blame him for not wanting to leave, but I mean, I guess money talks.
Well, of course, he wanted the money.
Yeah,
so the money is really what dictated this.
Yep.
And speaking about a lot of bad money spent, I just need to find out what your opinion is on what's happening in Cleveland.
I said from the very beginning, this was a foolish thing for any NFL team to be chasing this guy around, offering him any kind of contract. I've said from the beginning, I don't think he'll play another NFL game, and I still say that. And for the Browns to throw that kind of money around, to throw and obviously cast their own quarterback aside, he's got his own problems, but he had a pretty good year 2 years ago. He played hurt a lot last year. It isn't like he was, he's better than Tua. He's better than a lot of NFL quarterbacks.
And he's drama free.
Yeah, and more so than at least from a legal standpoint, he's drama free, right? The Browns made a horrendous mistake, and not just for the money, but is that the kind of guy you want leading your football team? Who follows a guy who's got all these allegations against him off the field? And Carlos,
Amari Cooper said it. Amari Cooper said it out loud.
Yeah,
he said, "How do you follow somebody who likes to have his butt oiled?" I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but he's like, "How do you follow somebody like that into battle?"
Yeah.
So he doesn't get it.
This is a watershed. This is a watershed moment for the NFL. The NFL needs to step up and do something about this. These guys think they can run amok in their personal lives because they're NFL players and they can do it. And I'll get a slap on the wrist and whatever. He shouldn't get 4 games. He shouldn't get 8 games. They should ban him from the league.
How far along should the NFL take to the Texans? Because of the report. I mean, that report, if that report's true, how culpable are they that they saw all of this happening? They actually allowed it and were, part of the reason why it was able to.
Yeah, Goodell's going to protect his owners.
Yeah, sorry. Carlos brought that up this morning too on our Are You Serious show, and they've got to be penalized, right? But at the end of the day, they're not responsible for Deshaun Watson's behavior. They're responsible for covering it up. And he thinks they used that information because they wanted Deshaun Watson out of town, and that's why they were, I'm not sure where he was going. I thought he was telling me they set him up, but that's not what he was saying. But I don't know if they wanted him out of town, why are they covering up the information? Why aren't they just releasing it all? What they know?
They're culpable.
Yeah, well, that's
what I mean. That's hold on. They set up the places where he was going to have this done. They gave him the non-disclosure agreements and stuff like that. Like
what do they got to lose though? They got nothing to lose. They're the worst team in the NFL. They're going to lose some draft picks and a bunch of money. There's no death penalty in the NFL, so they're not going to lose their team. But the NFL is going to come down on them as well. They need to. You're right. The teams can't be covering up for the players. I agree with that, and I kind of tried not to go down that road with Carlos today because I was trying to concentrate on the Watson part of this. But no, the team can't be just allowed. Any NFL team can't be allowed just to cover up for their player and walk him through the steps of this and how to try to get out of it. That's how these guys get this sense of entitlement that I can go and do anything I want. And they end up driving down roads 120 miles an hour like that kid in Las Vegas last year and doing crazy things because they think they're indestructible and untouchable, and they're not. They can't just run amok in their private lives.
That's good points, Keith.
Yeah, no, and I absolutely understand. Going to the other side of that, obviously, the Cleveland Browns have dismissed Baker Mayfield from having to attend the OTAs, and so the first thing I like about that is that Baker Mayfield was going to show up, so they had to excuse him.
No surprise
from showing up. So here's a trade scenario. I want to see what you think about it. They trade Baker Mayfield and a 3rd round pick for Kirk Cousins.
Well, my first thought would be, why would any team trade for Baker Mayfield when they got to pay his contract and the Browns are going to have to release him? No matter what happens with Deshaun Watson, how do you now say, okay, Baker, all's forgiven, come on back? It's a bad situation for the team. The fact that they dismissed him from the OTAs says everything. They have no intention of bringing this guy back no matter what happens with Deshaun Watson. So their only alternative is to release him. Why would you trade for him? I mean, if I'm the Vikings, I would make that move, but I don't want to make the move where I got to pay Baker Mayfield if I don't have to. It'd be much better for them to be able to get out from under Kirk Cousins $40 million and not have to pay Baker Mayfield. They could pay him a minimum this year, and the Cleveland can pay him the rest. But you do roll the dice that some other dumb team is going to make a trade too. So I like the replay. I think he'd fit well with the Vikings.
Well, I do too, and I think that it would actually make sense because of the money. You know, they would be about the same amount dead money.
I guess you're right there. But again, if they could get him without having to pay him at all, now they got money to spend elsewhere too. So there's that.
Yeah, but the problem is that then you still get the dead money from Kirk Cousins.
Oh,
like, if you as your Vikings.
Yeah, I guess you're right. It would kind of offset it, each other, I guess. So that's probably, if I'm Kirk Cousins, I probably don't want that deal. And I don't know if he's got a no trade or not. But if I'm the Vikings, I'd make that move.
No,
I would too. You know, especially since you're gonna. I feel like you'd be fleecing. You know,
if you're the Browns, you have to listen. You got to take this fault that you had here, and you're gonna just have to eat it, right? I think they have to suffer the consequences for making such a crazy trade. And look, go into the season with, I don't know who their third string quarterback is, but you're just gonna have to bite the bullet. That's how.
Jacoby Brissett right now they brought in. Yeah,
they brought Jacoby in. Okay,
yeah.
Well that's not a terrible replacement. I mean, he's a solid backup, but not for a full season. So bite the bullet with Jacoby.
Well, but on top of that, I mean, they're trying to fight whether they, because of the new allegations, they're saying that was actually written into the contract, that could void the contract if any new allegations came in and things of that nature. So there was certain things that they had written in this contract to make things a little bit better for them. But that being said, I mean, it's still, first off, the black eye you got from this whole situation is going to resonate to the rest of the NFL. Who wants to go to Cleveland now?
Yeah.
For any reason. So now you've got two franchises. I wouldn't want to go to Houston. I wouldn't want to go to Cleveland ever. Now what? Now we're down to 30 teams that I'd want to, you maybe want to go to. It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out.
And Andrew Bear is one of us. He was a Philly guy. He came from here and he went over to Cleveland. And making moves like this.
I was shocked when they gave him the contract to begin with. Now I think this year they're only paying him, I don't even know, it's like $1 million or some crazy number. They're not paying him much because they knew he was going. His people probably wanted that because they knew there was a suspension coming and they didn't want to lose that much money. But as you said, Jamie, there's got to be language written in there that they have a way out of this contract. And if they don't, they've set this franchise back, a decade probably.
Agreed. So, before we let you go, your Yankees are still the number one team in baseball. They have only played 22 games against teams with 500 or better records. Ultimately, they're going to have to start playing teams that actually have above 500 records, that they've been playing the soft part of their season early. Hey, the wins are the wins, so you get them when you can get them and such like that. But ultimately, consequently, the Phillies in the opposite way have paid one of the most. We've played 35 games of, against teams that are plus 500. Mm-hmm. How do you feel going into this month, and going to the All-Star break? Because this is where the Yankees are really going to have to start to step up a little bit because they're going to have these teams catching back up as they play harder opponents. Are the Yankees able to sustain what they're doing?
I want them to. I was very hard on the Yankees early in the season. I did not think they'd before the season, I should say. I did not think they'd make the playoffs because I didn't think they made the right moves to fix this roster, which is was, I thought, poorly constructed by Brian Cashman the last several years. Now they've done well, and I've had to, kind of go back and say, hey, I was wrong up till now, but there's still some holes there that scare me. It's hard. I had this argument with Mac a little bit. He's like, because I said, you can't go an entire season with Gallo and Hicks in your lineup hitting the way they are. They're not going to, if it doesn't catch up with you in the regular season, it's going to catch up with you in the playoffs. Because the catcher, while the catcher is better without Gary Sanchez, defensively for sure, and Trevino's had some big hits. Kiner Falefa's played really well at shortstop, makes the plays you got to make, which is all they need. They don't need Ozzie Smith out there. And he's had a few big hits, but I can't expect those guys to hit 280 for the year. So now if I got those two potential holes in my lineup, I can't have two more in Gallo and Hicks. I can't expect the other 5 guys to carry this lineup through an entire season and through the playoffs. So to me, they've got to fix this situation and go out and make a trade and get a center fielder. I would love to have seen them give Andujar a real shot in left field, and they sent him back to the minors. Now he's demanded, well, it's not a new trade demand. That was from last year. But look, there's still some warning signals here for me that this could fall apart. If the pitching keeps pitching the way they are, everybody stays healthy, knock on wood. Everybody's been healthy. Well, except for Chapman. Now Green's out. Things are starting to catch up with him. Cole has pitched great after a rough start until last night. Last night he set a record, or tied a record, I think, a Yankee record by allowing home runs to the first 3 guys he faced. Look, there's some warning signs here, but and as far as who you played, everybody's playing the same teams the same amount of times, basically. It's a fairly balanced schedule in Major League Baseball, right? Except for some of the interleague stuff. I can only play the teams on my schedule, and I have to beat the teams I have to beat. They're beating. They got to beat them whenever they play them, so it doesn't matter. And you got to play well against the better teams. They played a better team the last 3 games. They beat the Twins 2 out of 3. So
right, and I feel like that's important. Like I said,
yeah,
it's the same way with the Phillies. I mean, they get rid of Girardi, and I know that we talked about that in length and ad nauseum. That I thought that Girardi was not the right manager here, and
I agreed.
All
with
of a
you.
sudden, they get rid of him, and it's like a breath of fresh air, and they act like it. It's a big deal to everybody, including Girardi, who seemed like he was really excited to be gone.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see how that all plays apart. But like I said, every team's going to win 60 and every team's going to lose 60. It's what you do with those other 42. And as of right now, they're almost to, they're at 40 wins. So they're only 20 wins away from that with 54 games in. You know what I mean? So they have already, gotten a little bit of a lead, but they're only 6-7 games ahead.
Well, too, with the Yankees, and I got a couple of real quick Philly comment before we go, if we got time. With the Yankees, it's not so much. It doesn't matter what they do in the regular season. It only matters what they do in the playoffs. It's not going. They could win 115 games, and if they don't win the World Series, it won't matter because that's all that matters here. That's my problem with Brian Cashman. Somebody asked me today, "Are you happy now with Brian Cashman?" I said, "No. I mean, he's still only won 1 World Series since 2003 or 2000. And when's it when they win? He'd been to 1 World Series."
2009.
They won in 2009, but if you go back to 2003, they hadn't even been in a World Series. They've been in 1 World Series since 2003. They won it. That's not good enough for New York. It's just not. I mean, I don't want to sound like we're privileged or whatever, but this is the New York Yankees. This isn't the Kansas City Royals where you can have a good team once every 12 years and we're happy.
You have to provide every year.
And Cashman's got to take the blame for that. And Girardi, and Boone, it all runs downhill too. So I will say before you let me go on the Girardi thing, the part of this I like is I was really happy to see Rob Thompson get the job for the rest of the year. Rob Thompson's a guy who's very deserving of a chance at this job or a Major League Baseball managing job. He's been around for decades. But, kicked around the Tigers organization as a player, became a coach. He's been in the front office. He's done everything in baseball. He was a finalist for the Yankees job in 2017, and I really hoped he was going to get the job and not Aaron Boone. And I think he deserves a shot. And obviously, the results early, obviously the change in voice can have a lift early and it plateaus. But I hope he does well enough. The team does well enough that they keep him. I think you'll be very happy with Rob Thompson. He's a good baseball guy, and he knows the game. And I think he's the right voice for that team right now. I mean, look, they got some flaws too, right? This team's probably not going to make a World Series, but if he can just keep them, competitive and maybe get a wild card or compete for one, he may get the job full time. And I'd like to see that. He's a good baseball man.
So, but thinking about it in that regards, how much do you feel is that Rob Thompson could have been anybody? And the reason why I'm saying that is that obviously
wings,
that he won his first 6 games. That hasn't happened since 2003 when Moises Alou won 7 games, first 7 games with the Giants in 2003. That this team was prime, and they happened to go up against 2 teams that are faltering right now. The Angels, who are the Phillies of the AL. The Angels have the same makeup. They have a good batting order, terrible pitching. And then Milwaukee, who happens to be on a downslide right now. They're still number 1 in the Central,
team.
But
that's a good team, though.
Right.
I know they're on a little downturn, but that's a really good baseball team.
So, and then to sweep both of those teams, how much of that is Girardi gone to comparison to Thompson being here?
Oh, you're absolutely right. And my comments aren't to say, look, they won 6 in a row. He's going to be the best manager ever in the history of baseball. I'm just saying overall, I'm glad to see him get his shot. I want to see them do well. This 6 games you can throw out because you're right. The change in atmosphere, it gives you that lift for a couple of weeks or a month, and that's going to wear off. And then it matters what happens after that. I'm just glad that he got his shot. That's all. I don't think he's totally responsible. You're right. They could have put Jack in there for these 6 games. They might have won. I doubt that.
And the reason why I even think about that is that obviously he's listed as an interim manager right now. Right. And how do you switch to another manager? You can't do it in the middle of the season. You've got an interim manager.
They've given him the job for the rest of the year, the way I understood it. Am I wrong?
Correct. So, and that's kind of how I felt that, because the first thing you saw was Joe Madden gets fired after losing 12 games in a row. And he came up in conversation here in Philadelphia. And I'm like, why would you want a manager that just lost 12 games in a row?
Right. Yeah.
Joe Girardi. Why would you want that?
But then I think of names like, because I mean, we are always, nostalgic in Philadelphia. Is Jimmy Rollins fit to be a manager? Chase Utley.
I was going to say, how about Chase Utley? He would seem to be a guy who's got that makeup.
I was never a fan of Chase Utley.
No,
at least he would beat the Mets.
There was a couple things that I really liked about Chase Utley, but I never really liked him. I mean, if he was in front of me, he wouldn't have to buy a beer. But because he was a very integral part of winning that World Series. That being said, I didn't care for him as much as other people on that team. I liked Worth. I liked the Flying Hawaiian. Those were the guys that I felt. I loved Jimmy Rollins. Chase Utley was okay, and I thought that they should have traded Chase Utley 2 years earlier than they did.
Yeah,
they would have gotten a lot more for him. That we saw. I saw some of the writing on the wall that he was starting to decline. So I don't think that says, okay, well, now you can be a manager. I think that reminds me more of Ryan Sandberg trying to be a manager.
Yeah, that didn't go well.
No. I hear the name Raul Ibanez.
He's come up for jobs before. I haven't heard his name the last couple cycles, but he was coming up a lot for a while. Yeah. Ibanez, with the Yankees even. Yeah.
Did I hear, or does Paul Molitor manage a team?
Not right now. He managed Twins before Rocco Baldelli.
Yeah, yep. So he would be another name that I'd kind of like. The same thing with like Tony Gwynn. I'd love to see his name.
Tony Gwynn's no longer with us, unfortunately.
Yeah, you're right. So but that's like, those are the types of people that I want to do that. Well, when I thought of Pete Incaviglia, after talking to that guy, that Pete Incaviglia has been in my head
He's
ever
managing
since.
up here, you know. He manages down the road for me about 5 miles at Tri
Yeah,
Valley.
that's the reason why I'm bringing it up, because you actually get to see him
Yeah.
or get to hear about him a lot more frequently.
He's done a good job here.
Yeah. So, and I think that that's like the equivalent of AA baseball. You know, so
Yeah, they're playing independent league, but it probably is AA. I would say it's even better. It's a higher quality than when they had an affiliation with the Astros, because it was only rookie league then. So
I mean, but those are the
low A,
names
whatever they call it, low A, I guess they call it now.
Those are the names that I kind of think of.
Interesting.
When I think about managing this team. However, if he makes it to the playoffs and then wins a playoff game going into a series, I think this team's going to be really hard pressed to win a series in the playoffs with the way the bullpen is. That good hitting is going to beat good, good pitching is going to beat good hitting, and that good hitting is going to beat bad pitching in the playoffs. Yeah. And that's what, that is a recipe for disaster in a playoff series for the Phillies.
I would think if they made the playoffs, he's going to get the full-time gig, I would think. Wouldn't you? I mean, you got a better handle on Philadelphia than me, but I don't know how you don't keep the guy if you – and that's the danger of this interim tag, right? You get a guy in. Anytime you bring an interim in and he does well, it's very hard to get rid of him. Even if you think he's not your long-term guy, how are you going to move on from it? It's very hard to do. So
I think the benefit for Rob Thomson has been he's seen Gabe Kapler, he's seen Joe Girardi, he's seen where they've kind of failed, and I think that he internally just jotted down like, okay, so the Phillies right now, what we need to do, I need to get first off, get a consistent lineup, a batting lineup. Let me put in some of these younger players in here. You've seen guys like Bryson Stott step up, Nick Maton, and so on and so forth, and just allowing starting pitchers to kind of just figure it out. I really hated when like Joe Girardi, like in the fourth inning, Ranger Suarez may have had like not the best outing, but then he slowly starts to figure it out, and Joe Girardi pulls him with 2 outs left. Just allow him to figure it out, and I think that's been helping out the bullpen because you haven't had to see a lot of the bullpen arms as well. And so I think that Thomson having the inside scoop of what's going on. He's a smart guy, and he knows exactly how to handle this dugout and this team in general. And
Girardi was kind of the same way with the Yankees too. I mean, he did not manage that pitching staff as well as you would like to see a major league manager do.
Yeah,
Joe loves the Yankees too.
Carlos. Yeah, your picture says it all, Carlos. That you are just mad. That you are just angry. I get it. I understand. So
I'm not sure if it's angry, mad, angry, or mad crazy. I'm not sure which it is.
Yeah, he's I know he tries to make other people mad. That's what that comment really does. But yeah, we know. He's bop, 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 bop. He's really good at that, Carlos. So, I appreciate you coming on, Keith. I know that you were only supposed to come on for a half hour, and then when Mac and Jack are not here, when the cat's away, the mice are playing, and we just got to keep you on a little bit longer than normal. And I really do appreciate it. I miss you. Since you're not on our show anymore. But
well, listen, I pretended to be a Washington Redskins fan for longer than most people could do it. So
yeah, exactly, including Redskins fans in general. Right. Actually, Redskins fans are true. They have never stopped being Redskins fans. However, right now they're called the Commanders.
Yeah, they don't. The real fans don't acknowledge that name. I don't think. Does your guy, by the way?
My guy does now.
He does.
My guy does.
Okay.
Well, because he's been given. They have been really good at keeping very strong ties to the ones who define their fandom. You know what I mean? So like the hog farmers with Jeff, they do a lot for the community and things like that. And they went out of their way to try to make sure that those guys knew that they were being thought about. And I think that amongst everything else that's been going on, obviously I don't believe Snyder has his hands in that. I feel that that's happening from other executives that are trying to, they can only pull the blanket up so much, but you still want the right heads above the blanket, and I feel like that the hog farmers as a whole do so much for the community around Washington that it's important to make sure that they are treated better, because you need to start to change the image. And the only way you can start to do that is with people being out there in the community and people talking good about the organization as a whole. So I feel that they were smart to do those types of things. And it's not simple for them. I don't envy, being a Washington fan.
Well, Daniel Snyder wasn't involved. You just said the word smart, so there's no way he was involved in it.
Right. Well, how does somebody like that become so wealthy?
I have no idea. Is it new money or maybe it's old money? I don't know. I really don't know his story.
Yeah, me neither. And you know what? I don't really care, because he's not really a good guy.
He's not worth it. He's not worth the time to spend.
Yeah, I don't need to see the 30 for 30. We could just see for the 2 for 2. 2 for 2. You're gone.
How one man ruined one NFL franchise.
Although you could do that, you could probably do that show for a while. There's lots of people that have ruined franchises. How to ruin a professional sports franchise as an owner.
Well, he'd be leading the pack.
He would be. But Keith, thank you again for coming on. We really do appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll probably pass in the night on Sunday.
Absolutely. Have a great weekend.
Pleasure meeting you, Keith. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. Keith Engel from TGI Sports. Always great to talk to him. And like I said, I used to have him on the show. He would come in. He is a Patriots guy, but he would fill in for our Washington guy and do a great job. He would try to remain as good of a Washington fan as somebody could be, especially when you had 3 super fans. You had the Philly sports guy, True Blue, and Sneaky G, and Keith.
He's just trying to figure it out.
So, but that being said, you know what, Carlos, as you're saying that right there, that Trump ruined the whole football league, that football league is back. And they don't get any conversation whatsoever. And I know that Philadelphia's got a team, and Philadelphia is 5-3. Just for anybody who's out there thinking that the USFL is doing whatever they're doing, they are a Birmingham football league right now, and Birmingham's 8-0. The Generals are 7-1. And then there's a couple of teams at 5-3, and then there's like a whole bunch of teams that are 1-7. But the USFL has been playing. From what I understand, they have been getting good ratings, even though they are not getting anybody really in the stands. But they knew that going in here, that they needed to have a year under their belt before they could start to really push to different stadiums that they are trying to do this and what have you. And I'm not a biggest fan of the mascot that they decided to choose for
the Blob.
Stars, the Blob. I mean, first off, that was named by trolls on Twitter who were not Philly people, and that's how they decided to name him. And of course, it's just, I'm like, really? You see all the other mascots, and then you see what they came up with.
They tried to follow the blueprint. Like, obviously, like you look, they're obviously looking at Gritty, and they're obviously looking at the Fanatic, and they just kind of don't make sense with the teams. But Philly just kind of found a way to fall in love with them. But it's how you present it to the fans. I think obviously Gritty came in the social media era, and the Flyers have obviously taken advantage of that. The Fanatic just has longevity, and he's been able to kind of interact with the fans. He's done a lot of great things since the days at the Vet, and I don't know if the Blob. I think for the Blob, he just has to interact with fans. It's kind of tough when you're all the way down in Birmingham.
Right, and that's the hard part, when you literally, I think, other than the Birmingham Stallions, which grab a couple of thousand people, that these guys are not, they're playing to nobody. So it's almost like COVID. It's like COVID football.
Right.
And it's interesting. I obviously the playoffs are getting closer and closer here. I think that as of right now, the Stars have gotten a playoff spot. And obviously right now the Stallions are number 1 and the Generals are number 2, 8-0 and 7-1. But every championship in the USFL has had Philadelphia Stars in it.
There you go.
Starting from year 1, we lost to Michigan. Year 2, we won. Year 3, we won. We beat the Bandits, I think, in year 2, and in year 3, I think we went up against Michigan and beat them. I'm interested to see how this all plays out, but it's hard when you only see it on Fox, and there's so much other stuff going on that it's not really getting any play because they're not here.
Right.
And I just wanted to let everybody know that, yes, Philadelphia, we do have a USFL team. We do have summer football, and they actually seem to be doing pretty well. So it might be worth a tune in to see if you're interested in summer football at all.
I don't think I have a chance.
You know what I mean? It's obviously not Kelvin Bryant and Chuck Fusina, with Mora as the coach, but they are doing pretty well, and it'll be interesting to see when they come up next year.
So real quick, Carlos wants to know what's on my drink menu, I guess, for today. Carlos, it's a simple morning routine. I drink a couple of these. Is usually filled with water, and typically I do hot coffee, but today I decided to do a little iced coffee. That's all it is. I wish I had a beer in my hand right now. That'd be nice. A little 10 o'clock in the morning beer.
Yeah, see, and I'm the guy, like, if I'm going to have anything before noon, it's a Bloody Mary.
Hey, look at you. Okay.
That is my morning breakfast drink. If I'm going to be drinking, I may do a mimosa, but it's like I am a Bloody Mary guy before noon. After noon, then it'll go to beer. But I wait my turn. So yeah, double fisting. You can double fist all you want. The only double fisting I'm doing is typically with a cheesesteak in one hand and a beer in the other. So
There you go.
That's my double fist. That's the perfect Philly double fist there as we're going. So
there you go.
So, Al Parcero, I really do appreciate you coming on the show with us today. It's been a pleasure being back, in the saddle with you.
Yeah, man.
It's been a long time.
But it's like riding a bike. When every time we make shows together, it's always like riding a bike, man. It's great catching up again and talking Philly sports with the Philly sports guy. It's always a pleasure, man. So thank you, brother.
And I keep waiting. I keep waiting to get my phone call from the Union because we did not mention them at all, but they are still number 1 right now in the East. And I'm waiting for them to call me up to do who can do the longest dupe.
Yeah, I was like thinking, how did they not call you? Like, what?
Yeah, and you saw him do it the first time. He's like, I mean, come on now, that's not a dupe. That's just you going. But I can do it just that long too. I can do it for a full 50 seconds.
I have clips. I have proof.
Yes, and I usually really loud dupes. So, but yeah, they have a game coming up this weekend.
Next weekend, so June 18th. Right now, it's international break. So all the international teams are doing some friendlies, getting prepared for obviously the World Cup later this year. And so June 18th, they'll be back in Chester to face off against Cincinnati. So it should be fun. Cincinnati looks better this year. Obviously, they got the whole uni regime down there. They got our assistant coach now as their head coach, and so it'll be fun. It'll be definitely fun, man.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. I do have tickets, but I also have something else going on that day too. So I'm going to try to do.
Miss you down there.
I know it's been tough to try to make it. They always have games going on at different times. So obviously the Phillies start a 3-game series against Arizona this weekend, but tomorrow, more importantly, around my area, for everybody who is in Delaware County and in the Philadelphia area, tomorrow is Delco Day. 6/10. Actually, today is the literal holiday of Delco Day. It's the state holiday from Pennsylvania of Delco Day. So June 10th is 6/10, which is the area code in the Philadelphia region. Tomorrow we get to celebrate it. So Marty McGee's, it all benefits the Headstrong Foundation. The Philly sports guy is going to be there. I was going to do Eagles gear, but right now it kind of looks like I might be better off doing more Phillies gear.
Yes,
keep
sir.
up with the win streak. So we'll see what happens as of tomorrow, but that starts at 2:00 and it goes all night long. So if you have the opportunity, come out and support a great cause for the Headstrong Foundation. This is I believe the 6th year running. So it'll be a great time. Lots of bands, lots of food, lots of drink, lots of people. Be a fun time. So And let me say goodbye to everybody here for both Mac and Jack, who will be back tomorrow. Obviously, we got to take over. The Philly Connection got to take this over today. So we appreciate taking in. But tomorrow you will get back both Mac and Jack to do the show. And they will have the doctor on to talk about Yankees baseball, since we didn't talk that much about it except with Keith. But in the meantime, we appreciate everybody for tuning in with us today. And look forward to seeing you guys in the future. And
Thanks, guys.
Have a great one, guys.